Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to mypillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. mypillow.com. Promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. It's a breaking news day. The Department of War yesterday identified 4 of the 6 U.S. service members killed in a drone attack in Kuwait earlier this week. We have those updates for you. President Donald Trump said yesterday the United States could deploy the U.S. Navy to escort oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz as tensions with Iran threaten global shipping lanes. And 2 U.S. senators say they support President Trump 100%. You want to guess which 2 they are? Hint, they are from opposite political parties. But a new poll shows voters are divided on the U.S. military action against Iran, even as majority sees Iran as a security risk. South Carolina legislature is considering making balloon launches at weddings, birthdays, and other parties illegal with fines up to $1,000 and possible jail time. We have the details for you in today's show.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Let's start with the Department of War yesterday identifying 4 of the 6 U.S. service members killed in a drone attack in Kuwait earlier this week. Officials said Captain Cody A. Cork, 35 of Winter Haven, Florida, Sergeant First Class Noah Tejans, 42 of Bellevue, Nebraska, Sergeant First Class Nicole Moore, 39 of White Bear Lake, Minnesota, and Sergeant Declan J. Cody, 20 of West Des Moines, Iowa, died March 1st in Port Shuaba in Kuwait during an unmanned aircraft system attack, which while they were supporting Operation Epic Fury. All 4 soldiers were assigned to the 103rd Sustainment Command in Des Moines, Iowa. According to the Army, officials said the incident remains under investigation. 2 additional service members killed in the attack have not yet publicly identified, pending notification of their families. French President Emmanuel Macron on Tuesday ordered France's nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, Charles de Gaulle, to move from the Baltic Sea to the Mediterranean as the war in the Middle East expands. The carrier will deploy with frigates and its air wing, Macron said in a televised address, adding that Rafale fighter jets, air defense systems, and airborne radar assets have already been sent to the region. He said, and we will continue this effort as much as necessary. Macron also revealed that French forces shot down drones early in the conflict while defending Allied airspace. France is not directly participating in the U.S. and Israeli strikes on Iran, but the French president said forces are prepared to take defensive action against missiles and drones threatening allies. The deployment comes as the conflict spreads across the region, including recent strikes on a British air base in Cyprus, which Macron cited as a reason for strengthening the military posture. Fox News has confirmed that a CIA station inside the U.S. Embassy compound in Riyadh was hit during a drone attack after the incident was first reported by the Washington Post. 2 drones struck the U.S. Embassy complex in the Saudi capital, according to U.S. and Saudi officials. The attack caused structural damage to part of the embassy, smoke contamination inside the building, according to an internal State Department alert that was published by the New York Post. There were no immediate reports of injuries, and embassy personnel were sheltering in place. Now, have you noticed a bit of a theme in this war? 3 out of 3 instances that I've cited already in today's show involves the use of drones. The drone technology in the military has come so far that a large part of what is taking place is done by drones. And it's just amazing what they're able to do. I mean, you've got trained military pilots sitting in a room somewhere like video games, miles and miles away, and they're able to control these drones. And it's great because we don't have lives at risk. But it's just amazing how that technology has changed the way a war is fought to the betterment. Again, because we don't have pilots up there risking their lives in these events. And we're going to see more of it. Going to see a lot more of it, according to President Trump. We're just seeing the very beginning of this war. The president yesterday also said that the U.S. could deploy the U.S. Navy to escort the oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz as the tensions rise in that area. And that's a very important area through there. It could affect the entire world, actually, if shipping is stopped. Not just oil. A lot of things come through the Strait of Hormuz. In a post on True Social, the president said he ordered the U.S. Development Finance Corporation to provide political risk insurance and financial guarantees for maritime trade traveling through the Persian Gulf, particularly energy shipments. The coverage will be available to all shipping lines. If necessary, he said the U.S. Navy will begin escorting tankers through the strait as soon as possible. The president also said the move is intended to ensure the free flow of energy to the world. The Strait of Hormuz, located between Iran and Oman, is one of the world's most important oil choke points, with roughly 20% of global petroleum shipments passing through that narrow waterway. And it's narrow. I mean, you can look at it on the map and you can see, but it's like 21 miles wide. And it'd be very easy to bring it to a screeching halt. And of course, that's at this point, Iran has nothing to lose. Why wouldn't they try to do that? In other news from the Middle East, Qatar said that its air defenses shot down 2 Iranian Su-24 fighter jets during an attack on its territory. This according to a letter the country sent yesterday to the United Nations and also shared on X. That's another trend that we have noticed in this war. These world leaders, these countries, they're distributing their statements through the traditional media, but they're also sharing them on X. X has become just a huge news distributor. Now you have to be careful. You have to be careful because anybody can post on X. So you got to consider your source when you're looking at things and whether or not it's legit. But it's just amazing how these world leaders, and as you know, we get things all the time from the White House on X. But in this case, Qatar, the Qatari Ministry of Defense, posting on X that the Air Force had intercepted this aircraft along with 7 ballistic missiles and 5 drones. There we go again, the drones that had launched towards their country. Some of the Iranian attacks targeted energy infrastructure, including water tanks, power plants, facilities in Ras Laffan industrial city that was operated by Qatar Energy. Qatar said there were no reported casualties, and the government condemned the strikes as a flagrant violation of its sovereignty, and it warned it reserves the right to respond under Article 51 of the UN Charter, which allows countries to act in self-defense. I find it interesting that in the middle of war, you have all of these people citing Article such and such from the UN Charter. And it's almost like they're rules of war, and they want to abide by them. And I've always found that to be kind of interesting because you've got rules, but yet you're killing people. You're totally destroying infrastructure. You're destroying buildings. You're destroying transportation hubs. You're destroying, water lines, gas lines. But boy, we got to stick by the rules. Got to stick by Article whatever, the UN Charter, or you're going to be in trouble. But you've just about destroyed a country. having not been in the military, I guess I don't understand the military rules of engagement. I never have. But I guess there are rules to killing, because we've seen a number of countries who, outside of the U.S. and Israel, who have been pulled into this, just like I mentioned a minute ago, France and others who've been pulled into this conflict, and they're doing it. They're prefacing by saying, well, under Article such and such of the UN Charter, we have the right to do this. In other words, the rules allow us to get involved in this war. So watch out. We're going to send our ships. We're going to send our aircraft. We're going to send our drones to destroy things because the rules will allow it. Interesting, huh? Love to get your comments. Text me, email me, joe@joeyhudson.com. Leave me a message on the MyPillow message line, 864-477-JOEY. GOP shots like Ozempic are everywhere right now, but here's the question. What happens when you stop? If you don't fix the reason your body gained weight in the first place, the weight comes back. Joey Hudson here at PhD Weight Loss. They don't just treat the weight as the problem. They treat it as a symptom of metabolic dysfunction, hormone imbalance, or inflammation. If you don't correct those, no shot or hack will ever last. PhD looks at you holistically to improve your health span, your energy, and your longevity, because losing weight is one thing, but keeping it off for life is another. Right now, when you call PhD Weight Loss and mention Joey Hudson, you'll receive 2 free weeks in the program, and they'll cover the cost of your food. That's real results with zero guesswork. Again, mention Joey Hudson when you call 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900. Visit them online at myphdweightloss.com. Stop chasing weight. Start fixing what actually is causing it. Call today. Be sure and tell them Joey Hudson sent you. Get you 2 free weeks in the program. 864-644-1900. Senator John Fetterman voiced support yesterday for U.S. strikes against Iran, breaking with most of his fellow Democrats following a classified Senate briefing on the ongoing conflict. Senator Fetterman argued the military action was justified if it prevents Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon. After the meeting, he said, why can't we all just say the world is safer and it's more just because of what has happened? He also dismissed concerns that the Trump administration violated the War Powers Resolution, noting presidents have up to 60 days of military action after notifying Congress. Now, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham struck a far more aggressive tone after the briefing, predicting much larger strikes against Iran in the coming days. Senator Graham said the amount of firepower coming in the next day or two from us is going to be overwhelming. Now, this kind of reinforces what the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has said, what the president said, is kind of like, hey, hold my beer, you ain't seen nothing yet. Graham had told NBC that the goal of the operation is to eliminate the threat of nuclear war, and he believes President Trump has accomplished that.
The goal of this operation is to change the threat, not the regime. When this operation is over, no matter who takes over in Iran, they will not have ballistic missiles to hurt us, Israel, or the region. They will not have the capability to be the largest state sponsor of terrorism, whether it's a cleric or a group of representative of the country where there's an election. It doesn't matter right now. Iran in the future will no longer be the largest state sponsor of terrorism. They cannot rain terror on the region. They cannot commit mass murder. That's the goal of this operation. Again, the mothership of terrorism is sinking. The captain is dead. Well done, President Trump. It's been the policy of this country for decades to eliminate this regime. President Trump did it. Admiral Cooper came up with a military plan that's unbelievable. We're not done yet, but when it is done, Iran will no longer be capable of being the largest state sponsor of terrorism. That is the goal, and that goal will be achieved.
Well, based on what we know at this point, that goal has pretty much been achieved. There's a lot more work to be done, according to officials. But, boy, taking the Ayatollah out, taking 40, 50 or more of the primary leaders of the country out, that has to be tough to organize a response. And we can only hope that that goal has been achieved, that we will never have to worry about Iran in our lifetimes being a threat worldwide. Now, the American people, though, don't seem to share the enthusiasm of these two senators. Voters are divided on U.S. military action against Iran, even as a majority sees the country, Iran that is, as a security risk. A Fox News poll finds that 61% think Iran poses a real national security threat to the United States. That view is very similar to most previous Fox News polls since 2006, according to the network. The notable exception was when concern hit 73% last June, right before U.S. military action against Iranian nuclear facilities called Operation Midnight Hammer. Now, even though a majority views Iran as a danger to the country and the rest of the world, that concern does not translate into majority support for the current U.S. military action. As 50% approve, 50% disapprove. It's almost split down the middle, almost half and half. In addition, 51% think that President Trump's handling of Iran has made the U.S. less safe, up from 43% last summer. 29% say that he's made the U.S. safer. By comparison, when the same question was asked about former President Joe Biden in 2023, 50% said his handling of Iran had made the U.S. less safe, while 12% said safer. So at least a majority of people believe that we're safer, but it makes no sense that they're not totally aligned behind President Trump if they want that safety. Among Republicans now, more than 8 in 10 approve of the current U.S. use of force, while only 6 in 10 say the president's actions on Iran are making the U.S. safer. Nearly 8 in 10 Democrats disapprove of the U.S. strikes and think that things are less safe because of the President Trump's performance, while 6 in 10 or more independents think the same on both counts. Now, among voters who have served in the military, and this makes a difference, 59% approve of U.S. strikes on Iran, 39% disapprove. Compared to voters overall who say the U.S. is less safe by a wide margin, veterans are more closely divided on the question of whether Trump's actions have made the country safer, 37%, or less safe, 44%. So the country is very divided on this issue, just like they're divided on a lot of issues. In a joint effort with Israel, as you know, the U.S. started launching strikes on Saturday morning. We woke up over the weekend to Operation Epic Fury. All survey interviews were conducted after the bombings began from Saturday through Monday, according to Fox News and their pollster. President Trump's job rating on foreign policy is underwater by 20 points, as 40% approve, 60% disapprove, including 21% of Republicans who disapprove. Now, I always look at these polls with, or take these polls with a grain of salt. I have many of you often text me and email me, well, they didn't talk to me. Who are they talking to? Didn't talk to my neighbors. Didn't talk to my church friends. Didn't talk to my family. Some 43% of voters approve of Trump's overall performance, while 57% disapprove. In January and December, it was 44% approved, 56% disapprove. So that disapproval has bumped up a percentage point during this conflict. Another note that they measured here: perceptions of how the United States is viewed abroad have improved slightly since the end of the Biden administration, while a majority, 56%, say the country is less respected around the world than it was 4 years ago. That's an improvement from 61% who said the same in 2024 under President Biden. Meanwhile, 30% say the U.S. is more respected, up from 23% under Biden and 29% during Trump's term. Are you getting all these numbers? You know, these pollsters, they love to throw data out there. I guess the overall takeaway is the American people are confused. The American people aren't quite sure if they really agree with us, because what they see, and I have to tend to agree with them at times, is we are going to be spending a boatload of money in this war. Money that honestly we don't have. We are in the very early stages of economic recovery. You saw how the stock market is just like the American people, not quite sure what to take of this. Not sure how to respond. Investors yesterday did not like it at all. It was a wild ride, and it, sending a message that people are uneasy, investors are uneasy during times like these. Stocks swung up and down. At one point, there was a 1,200-point drop before kind of turning around and correcting itself. By the end of the day, the Dow logged a 0.8% loss off more than 400 points. So it rallied back. But boy, it was scary in the early morning trading yesterday. And none of us want that. We have 401ks. We have our life investment in there. And so when you talk with people and they tell you that they're just concerned about this war, they're concerned because they're not sure how it's going to affect them individually. Yeah, we're a long way off. And, a lot of people just think, hey, we should mind our own business, let them fight it out. And there was a time that I totally believed that. I'm not sure that we have that luxury anymore, though. I'm not sure that we can just say, let them fight it out. If we could become totally independent on oil, if we could just be independent to where we did not need any trade, then we could say that, hey, y'all do your own thing. We're just gonna enjoy life over here in the U.S. Unfortunately, our world economy is not that simple anymore. 2/3 of voters are generally concerned that President Trump's use of executive orders and acting without congressional approval may be permanently altering the country's system of checks and balances. That may be what this is more about than the fact that we're at war. Because the Democrats, we have to give them a little bit of credit here, have successfully kind of controlled the narrative that Trump did this and he shouldn't have. Trump didn't have the authority to do it. Well, yes, he did. He can do this for 90 days. And anybody who's honest in Congress knows that. But the Democrats want you to think, and wants most of the American people to think, Trump is a wild man. He's gone rogue. He's starting to attack countries just on his own. Well, it's not the case. And we have to continue to stand behind the president. And based on what I know about it, and based on other folks around the country, and those in much smarter and higher authority than I, they support the president, and I'm going to stand with him on this as well. There's some serious questions being raised about law enforcement, accountability, how policies put in place during one national moment are now playing out in another. So here's a story. Austin, Texas. 3 police officers are being held as heroes after stopping what authorities describe as a deadly shooting rampage. According to reports, a gunman opened fire at a popular college bar, killed 3 people, wounded 13 others before officers confronted him and shot him, took him out. He's dead. That suspect has been identified and described as a pro-Iran Senegalese immigrant. As of now, investigators are still looking into his background and whether there was any ties to broader extremist activity. There's been a suggestion that this could be a case of terrorism. We don't know that yet. Maybe jumping to conclusions. But I didn't say that. Others have said that. Others, the federal government, the FBI has said they're looking into the possibility that this was terrorist related. Now, here's where the story shifts. And this is where you'll just kind of, if you're like me, you kind of get angry at times. You're frustrated. Despite the fact that these officers intervened, stopped the attack, took him out, they are expected to face a grand jury review. Not because they've been charged, not because prosecutors have announced wrongdoing, but because of a policy put in place in 2021 by Jose Garza, the district attorney for Travis County. Now, you got to understand, Mr. Garza took office just months after the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis. That event triggered nationwide protests, as you remember, led to sweeping changes in policing policies across the country. In Austin, Texas, one of those changes was a requirement that every officer-involved shooting be presented to a grand jury. So it's one more thing that these officers, these men and women in blue who are out there protecting our communities, putting their lives at risk, have to make split decisions Now they have to think about, well, if I pull my gun and if I fire it, then I've got to go before a grand jury and justify it. Is that not crazy? Supporters of that approach argue that it creates accountability. They say anytime deadly force is used, it should be reviewed independently to ensure the law was followed. Critics, including the officer's attorney, Doug O'Connell, see it differently. Mr. O'Connell says the policy mandates that every shooting, even one that appears justified on its face, be placed before a grand jury. And in Texas, grand jury proceedings are conducted in secret, like most areas. Only prosecutors are in the room. They decide what evidence is presented. You see where I'm headed with this? There's no judge presiding in the traditional sense, and defense attorneys are not allowed to present their case directly. So you got these officers in a room where this information is being presented by the prosecutor. According to Mr. O'Connell, prosecutors are under no obligation to present exculpatory evidence that might favor the officers, and that's his concern. He argues the process has become one-sided depending on how the district attorney's office frames the case. So you get a district attorney who maybe doesn't like a particular police officer, that could end that police officer up in a court case. Now, to be clear, as of this moment, again, there are no charges pending against these officers. The Austin Police Association has confirmed that there are no charges. Detective Christopher Irwin told reporters there are no indictments, no formal accusation. What's happening, we're told, is procedural. But procedure matters. From the officer's perspective, they responded to an active shooter. They stopped a man who was, by all accounts, still firing. 3 people were already dead. 13 others had been wounded. It was chaos, high-risk situation. Officers, again, are trained to neutralize a threat as quickly as possible, and that's what they did. The larger question is, should every officer involved shooting automatically go before a grand jury? That's my question to you today. Text me, email me, joe@joeyhudson.com. Leave me a message on the MyPillow message line, 864-477-JOEY. Always use promo code Joey when you go to MyPillow.com. You get the very best deal that Mike Lindell has to offer you. Now, some are going to argue that, yes, that this is a good thing because of the accountability. They say sunlight is the best disinfectant, that public trust demands independent review, that the justice system must apply equally, even when the actions appear justified. Others argue that mandatory grand jury referrals send a message, whether it's intentional or not, that officers should expect criminal scrutiny every time they pull the trigger, even in defense of innocent lives. I'd love to get some feedback from my police officer friends out there. How you feel about this? And that's the tension that we're seeing in Austin, Texas right now. There's another layer to the story also, though. Mr. O'Connell referenced the WREN Collective, an Austin-based criminal justice reform group that has supported changes in prosecution policy. Critics describe the group as influential in shaping Garza's agenda, the district attorney. Supporters would say they advocate for transparency and reform in a system that historically shielded police misconduct. The debate is not new. It's been playing out in cities across America since 2020. What makes this case particularly sensitive, though, this wasn't a routine traffic stop that escalated. This wasn't even a questionable use of force video that has been circulating on social media. This was an active mass casualty event that had already happened when they arrived, and they stopped further loss of life. When officers respond to something like that, again, the expectation from the public is very simple. Stop the threat. Protect my family. Protect me. They did. Now, the post-incident process reflects a much broader shift in how different jurisdictions handle police shootings. Grand juries in Texas operate, again, behind closed doors, as I said. There are no transcripts made public during deliberations. The prosecutor presents evidence to witnesses. Most grand jury proceedings, not just in police cases, result in indictments when prosecutors seek them. Now, we don't know what Mr. Garza is going to try to do here. How's he going to present the evidence? Now, that is a statistical reality nationwide, that when, in most grand jury proceedings, there's an indictment when the prosecutor wants them to be indicted. Now, in police-involved shootings, grand juries have historically declined to indict in a lot of cases, particularly when evidence supports self-defense or defense of others. So we'll have to see how this plays out, and we're going to know pretty soon. The identities of the officers have not been publicly released yet. Their attorney says that's intentional, citing concerns for their safety, especially given that investigators are still determining whether the suspect had broader ideological ties and whether or not this was some type of terrorist activity. And that's another dimension that you have to throw in here. If the gunman's motives were connected to foreign extremist sympathies, that raises national security questions. But right now, law enforcement has not publicly confirmed this association. What we do know is 3 people are dead, 13 others were injured, and 3 officers ended up the hero of the day, yet they're going to have to appear before a grand jury to plead their case. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. Now, here's a topic that you probably didn't think the South Carolina legislature would be debating anytime soon. On the surface, it seems kind of simple, even a little sentimental. We've all seen it at graduations, memorials, birthday parties. A crowd gathers, someone counts down, and dozens, sometimes hundreds of balloons drift into the South Carolina sky. It feels symbolic. It feels harmless. But now 2 South Carolina nonprofits are pushing for a statewide ban on organized mass balloon releases. And they're on the clock because the legislative session is winding down. Now, here's the story. This proposal was introduced by State Representative Dennis Moss, an upstate Republican. It was pre-filed back in December 2024, assigned to committee, and it's been sitting there ever since. No vote yet, no movement, just waiting. Now, behind the push are environmental advocacy groups, including Palmetto Pride. Their executive director says essentially intent doesn't matter. If you release something into the environment and you don't recover it, you're polluting. That's trash. And that's really the core of the debate. Now, is a balloon release a heartfelt tribute, or is it litter with good PR? That's the question. Now, let's look at the numbers for a minute. According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, known as NOAA, balloon debris is a persistent issue along America's coastlines. Animals ingest balloons. Beaches get littered with balloons. Tourism can be impacted. Now, here in South Carolina, the South Carolina Aquarium tracks litter through a community science effort called the Litter Journal. Over the past decade, volunteers have picked up about 10,000 pieces of balloon debris, according to their research. Now, put that in perspective. During that same period of time, they collected nearly 835,000 cigarette butts, more than 421,000 pieces of other types of plastic. So balloon litter isn't the biggest litter problem, not even close. But advocates argue that even if it's not the largest category, it's one of the most preventable, because unlike cigarette butts, a balloon release is organized. It's intentional. It's planned at these celebrations, whether it's a birthday or memorial or whatever. And once those balloons go up, they don't disappear, according to the group supporting this. They come down somewhere. One coastal community has already decided they're going to draw the line. Beaufort County became the first area in South Carolina to ban mass balloon releases in December of last year. Local leaders there cited environmental concerns and the risk to wetlands. Now, supporters of the statewide ban say that that's exactly the problem with doing this piecemeal. If Beaufort bans it, but another area does not, a balloon released in one place can drift into another jurisdiction. So how do you combat that? Because balloons don't respect limits. They don't respect a city limits or a county limit. So the goal now is uniformity. They want one statewide standard. Now, let's talk about the wildlife, because this is where the emotional case gets stronger. Sea turtles, particularly loggerheads, often mistake balloons for jellyfish, which is one of their primary food sources. When ingested, the material can block their digestive systems. The turtles can literally starve to death. They can also become entangled in strings and ribbons that are often attached to the balloons as well. That can cause injury, infection, even amputation. Latex balloons, they say, just don't pop and vanish. They can take years to break down. So they're with us for quite a while. Even the so-called biodegradable balloons may take up to 2 years to fully decompose, according to the research. And according to the Post and Courier, who has written a column about this, back in 1986 in Cleveland, Ohio, an event known as Balloon Fest 86 released about 1.5 million helium-filled balloons into the sky. The idea, of course, was to be festive. Instead, a cold front moved in. The balloons, rather than rising and moving on, they fell into Lake Erie. They forced a closure of an airport. And tragically, a search and rescue mission for 2 missing fishermen was disrupted. Both men drowned. The event has become a cautionary tale for these types of events. Now, to be clear, we're not talking about 1.5 million balloons in South Carolina. We're talking about organized releases at graduations, memorial services, birthday parties, smaller gatherings. But the principle is similar, I guess you could say. Advocates say that once you release them, you lose control. Now, there's another interesting wrinkle here, too. This isn't a brand new idea. Back in 2011, a group of elementary school students tried to lobby state lawmakers to ban balloon releases in order to protect loggerhead sea turtles. That effort didn't go very far. Now, here we are, more than a decade later, having this same conversation. If the current proposal passes as written, violating the ban could bring fines of up to $1,000 and potentially even jail time. Importantly, the penalties would not apply to accidental releases. This would target organized, intentional mass releases. So you tell me, how would you feel about having the birthday party for little Johnny, and you say, oh, it'd be fun to have some balloons, release the balloons. You release the balloons, and you get a knock on the door by law enforcement with a citation for $1,000 and possibly jail time. Now, what's the counter argument here? Some would say this is government stepping into yet another area of personal expression, that a balloon release at a funeral or a graduation or a birthday party is symbolic speech, that it's part of how families grieve, celebrate, remember. Others would argue that if we're serious about litter, we should focus first on the categories that dominate the problem: cigarette butts, plastics, everyday trash, not something that represents a fraction of overall debris. And then there's the question of enforcement. How would it be policed? Would local law enforcement be expected to respond to a balloon release at a private event? Would there be warnings first? How do you determine what qualifies as organized versus spontaneous? And the bigger question is this just another example of government just getting involved in families' personal business? South Carolinians value personal freedom, local decision-making. There's always tension when the state considers stepping in to create a uniform rule, or when any body of government tries to limit what you can do. Right now, the bill's sitting in committee with only a few months left in the legislative session. Time is short if supporters want it passed this year. Probably not going to happen. Maybe it moves, maybe it doesn't. What do you think? Does South Carolina need a balloon law? Text me. Email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.